Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Planning Board agenda meeting tonight, May the 11th, 2022. We have our CAO, Rob Philpott, with us. We have our engineer from Technical Services, Aaron McDonald, and Linda Stevenson from Tech Services, and members of the public, and welcome to our viewers on YouTube, and members of the media who are watching on YouTube as well. We have Brian Harlick here on the left, running the controls. And Councillor Adams, I believe, is going to be online. Are you with us, Councillor Adams? Okay, you'll let us know when she comes on. Okay, at this point, we'll turn it over to the Chair of the Planning Board Committee, Councillor Brian McFeely. The floor is yours, sir.
I thank you, Your Worship, and I'll remain seated so I can speak closer to the mic so people, particularly online, can hear better. We will call the Planning Board meeting of May 11th to order and ask for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Your Worship, that the agenda be approved as circulated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. So just kind of a prelude here. The Planning Board consists of Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Adams, Your Worship, and myself as chair. Those are the voting members of Planning Board, but as always at our Planning Board meetings, we welcome the input and the questions from our fellow councillors. Not only welcome, we encourage it. So that's just for a point of explanation for folks that may be watching, or our big crowd in the public forum here tonight. So our one and only item on the agenda is a major subdivision preliminary approval for 371 Jennifer Street. So the recommendation, the supporting explanation, the purpose, to subdivide PID number 937755 into 4 residential lots. Lot 2-1, lot 22-2, excuse me, that should be 22-1, 22-2, lot 22-3, and 22-4, and approve lot 05-9, PID number 937771, currently on service. PID number 937755 is zoned R4, and PID number 937771 is zoned R2. Background: an application was received from IPAC Inc. for PID number 615286 to subdivide PID number 937755 into 4 residential lots and approve lot 05-9 PID number 937771. The development, Jennifer Street Highlands, will be a combination of row housing and semi-detached dwellings. The proposed lots are indicated on preliminary survey plan prepared by Morris Geometrics and Engineering Limited, plotted April 26, 2022. The parcel of land is a remaining portion of the city's, the old town of Summerside's subdivision known as the Land Assembly. That was in existence in the 80s. This development will complete the subdivision, and the map is there showing the proposed lots at the upper end of Jennifer Street. The report, as required under section 3.5 of the Subdivision Site Development Bylaw, Council, Planning Board, and the Development Officer shall consider the following general criteria in reviewing development applications under this bylaw as applicable. A, conformity with this bylaw. Staff comment: this subdivision conforms with the bylaw as it promotes smart growth, making effective use of the land. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: this subdivision conforms to the official plan as the land use is designated as residential land use, Schedule B, future land use plan, and the criteria E, F, G, and H identified in the Parks and Greenspace plan, section 8.4. There is no impact to the Parks and Greenspace plan. C, conformity of the zoning bylaw, or excuse me, with the zoning bylaw. Staff comment, the proposed lots within the subdivision will be required to meet the development standards of the R4 and R2 zone as applicable. D, the orderly and following nature of the development. Staff comment, this development promotes residential growth and conforms to the principle of orderly and following, as it is an example of infilling vacant land. E, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, and environmental damage. Staff comment, the site is suitable for the development. There is no natural hazards and no environmental damage should occur. Water runoff from the site will be managed by a storm drainage system connected to the city's system. F, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots, and services, including conformity with any city concept plans. Staff comment, this development promotes the pattern of streets in the area. The proposed cul-de-sac completes the existing Jennifer Street and conforms with city standards. G, adequacy of the applicant's proposal for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including the adequacy of the city streets and services to handle increased loads. Staff comment, the proposed cul-de-sac will be designed to meet city standards. The paved shoulder on the proposed street will allow for safe pedestrian traffic. The city's water supply in the area is adequate for the new subdivision, and the sewage treatment plant can handle the additional loading. New water and sewer infrastructure will have to be installed to service this new development, as outlined in the preliminary infrastructure plan submitted by the developer dated February 2022. The developer is responsible for the new water servicing easement to the northwest between the two 4-unit buildings for the fire hydrant and the water services of the buildings. Excuse me. All infrastructure is to be designed and installed to meet the city standards. The developer has met the servicing requirements for storm drainage as shown on the servicing plan submitted and designed by the developer's civil engineer. 8, suitability of parkland provisions. Staff comment, parkland dedication is required for a residential major subdivision. The parkland dedication for this development was previously satisfied at the time of the preliminary subdivision of the land assembly. I, impact on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, not applicable. J, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations. Staff comment, not applicable. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the cul-de-sac will be a continuation of Jennifer Street. Staff review. Staff recommend the application from IPAX Inc. for preliminary subdivision to subdivide PID number 937755 into 4 residential lots, Lot 22-1, Lot 22-2, Lot 22-3, and 22-4, and approve Lot 05-9, PID number 397771, subject to the following. 1, the developer shall satisfy all municipal servicing requirements. 2, the developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement as per section 8.5 of the Subdivision and Site Development Bylaw. The planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. So the planning board recommendation, preliminary subdivision approval be granted to IPAX Inc. for a preliminary subdivision to subdivide PID number 937755 into 4 residential lots, Lot 22-1, 22-2, 22-3, and 22-4, and approve Lot 05-9, PID number 937771 be recommended to be approved by council. And if I could have a mover and a seconder in the planning board, moved by Councillor Ramsey, and second by your worship. open the floor for discussion, and I note that the developer, Mr. Brown, is with us this evening, as well, I believe, Mike is his engineer. So if we have any technical questions relating to the development, the expertise is here to answer it. So. Your worship?
Sorry. Were the neighbors notified by letter or anything about this, or do they have to be? Or does the developer own the properties
The
around?
property around it is already, the property that's in question is zoned R4. The proposal that's being put forward complies with that zoning and is actually, I'll say, a lower density than could be there. It could be large apartment buildings. Instead, he's going with row housing and a couple of semis.
Thank you.
Councillor McDougall.
Yeah, looks great. The gray area around, is that an easement or a, what do you call it?
There's an existing water main that went up through the property and across over to Greenwood Drive. And
Okay.
that's the easement that would contain, and he could
And
build.
that's all there now, right?
It exists now and they can
Okay.
tap into that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you. I just have one question, and it was about the parkland. So is that, because that agreement was already made back in the day, like you said, and is Elm Street School Park considered the park for that area? Is that, I'm just
When
wondering about that.
Our understanding is before ours, that whenever the land assembly project was put forth by the town of Summerside,
Yeah.
the entire area was laid out with parkland, and it was done by the town at that time.
Okay.
And all land was then to be developed with no parkland because they'd allotted for parkland. There's a small area down at Jennifer Street. I'm not
Yes.
sure where else that they allocated or said, but was it part of the entire land assembly at that time?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just curious. Oh, thanks.
Any other questions? We're good. Deputy Mayor.
I guess in the application that's come forth, will these be units that are rentable or purchased individually? Do you know?
Well, say lot 22-2, if we look at that, for example, the larger one in the back, the intent is to put a row house on that. The individual units cannot be subdivided. You could buy in all the buildings entirely on lot 2 or 22.2, but you couldn't buy individual units because they don't have individual services or frontage on the street. But he could sell it and develop it into 3 larger multi-unit building lots, but each individual lot could be sold, but individual units in each building cannot be sold.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any lights.
So I should clarify one thing. I'm not into condominiums or anything like that, whether people can buy that. As far as us, as far as the city subdividing off, we don't get into if something's a condo and people are buying a unit. So as far as our rules, as far as subdividing them off, someone may be able to, that's outside of my expertise.
And I'm sorry, I just had one more question.
Sure.
I should have asked it. I guess, are they going to be like accessible, like for seniors, or, do we know any of that yet, or we don't?
We don't have building plans per se. We just have the size of the buildings and where they're gonna fit. If the applicants wish to speak on that, that's not been, we're just looking at subdividing off and providing the lots based on the size of a building that could fit on there.
Okay.
So what's the total number of units that would be in the subdivision? We don't know. We don't have that.
And even as we said, what was proposed may not be what actually
No,
finally gets built.
understood.
But we don't have that number, but even if it might be it.
Good. Councillor Durand, you good? Seeing no further lights, are you ready for the question? Planning Board, I read the recommendation back into the record just so that we're all clear. Preliminary subdivision approval be granted for IPAX Inc. for preliminary subdivision to subdivide PID number 937755 into 4 residential lots. Lot 22-1, 22-2, 22-3, and 22-4. And approve lot 05-9, PID number 937771, be recommended to be approved by council. And that was moved by Councillor Ramsey and seconded by Mayor Stewart. So all those in favor say aye.
All right,
Contrary? Motion is carried unanimously, and
will that be going to council tonight, tonight's meeting?
not on tonight, Rob.
It's not on tonight? Pardon? May
May
16th.
16th, so Monday night. I won't be here Monday night, so perhaps Councillor Ramsey, you could bring the motion forward on behalf of Planning Board? Thank you. Okay, that concludes the May 11th Planning Board agenda, so I would entertain the motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by your worship. We are adjourned.
So we
10
move-
minutes to spare.
We move into a council meeting, it's for 6, is it, the council meeting? So maybe we should wait for the 10 minutes, so, in case some people are here. still connected with YouTube? Okay. Is Carrie online? You with us, Councillor Adams? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to the special council meeting, May 11th, 2022. We have our CAO, Rob Philpott, with us. We have our engineer from Tech Services, Aaron McDonald, and Linda Stevenson. And I'd like to welcome the members of the media watching the meeting tonight and members of the public, as well as our people in the audience tonight. We've got a good crowd in, so that is great. And Aaron is getting connected there with the microphone. Thank you. So, is there approval for the agenda? Moved by Bruce and Councillor McDougall and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Carried. Public meeting number 1, 395 Brophy Avenue, official plan and zoning amendment. Councillor McFeely, the chair of the planning board. Floor is yours, sir.
I thank you, Your Worship. We'll proceed right into the background. The City of Summerside has initiated an application for a portion of PID number 322339 to amend the city official plan from parkland use to residential land use, and the zoning bylaw from Parkland P Zone to high-density residential R4 zone. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow apartment buildings in proposed R4 zone as a result of the proposed rezoning. The Park and Greenspace plan will require an amendment. The Parks and Greenspace amendment will be addressed as a separate process, which will also be held this evening as public meeting number 1B. Proposed official plan amendment. Change the land use from parkland use to residential land use. Proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Change the zoning from Parkland P Zone to high-density residential R4 zone. And the subject property is defined on the map there. The application was advertised in the April 27th, 2022 edition of the Guardian. Letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of subject properties. So a Parkland P zone, the current zone, the purpose of this zone is to accommodate parks and other parkland uses, permitted uses, subject to bylaw review. In the P zone include drainage greenway, public park, trail or linear parkway, a green belt, swimming, wading pool, accessory buildings. Discretionary uses subject to council approval include developmental standards. The standards shall be determined on an individual basis by the development officer, but on the applicant's request, they may be reviewed by council for their determination. High-density residential R4 zone, the proposed zoning. The purpose of this zone is to provide for high-density housing in the form of apartments, as well as housing in the form of single-family, semi-detached duplex dwellings, row house, townhouse, and other compatible uses. Permitted uses subject to bylaw requirements in the R4 zone include single-family dwellings, assisted living, row house, semi-detached dwelling, duplex dwelling, townhouse, apartment building, group home, nursing care facility, either community care or nursing home, a boarding house, child care facility medium, social service agency, accessory building, and rooming houses. Discretionary uses subject to council approval include tourism establishment, tourist homes, and inns. And they also require conditional use approval. And conditional uses approval are subject to the development officer approval. So the R4 zone conditional uses, home-based business, tourism establishment, bed and breakfast and vacation rental properties, and secondary suites. Now is the time that we would welcome comments and questions, and we would ask, certainly make time available to the developer to make comment. And Jamie Rogerson, the spokesperson this evening. So if you would please state your name and your address into the mic so we have that for the record, please.
My name is Jamie Rogerson, and I live at 106 Alley Drive, Summerside. So I guess, Brian, do you have the picture of the plan up there? Of the new plan? Anyway, so I guess not much has changed, really. We're still going after the same type of development, 432 units. The only thing that has really changed is we had met with the planning department and some of the city officials, and we were trying to work a way around having traffic go past Brophy Street, past Chesapeake Heights and some of the surrounding apartment buildings. So we kind of came to the conclusion that an entrance off of Elm Street or Tower, that intersection, may be better for everybody. So in doing so, we are looking to move the park to the northwest corner, just removing the park and setting it up in the top corner. This gives us a little bit more room, which allowed us to actually apply a green space or a seating area and/or possible dog park we had in the plans. So as far as housing goes, nothing has changed, but it may be a little bit better for everybody, something that might accommodate everybody a little better.
Is there a reason why we don't have the picture or the layout
there.
or?
It's here, but it's not
I'm a bit like this process has been drawn out quite
Yeah,
a
we should have-
ways. I'm surprised we're not better prepared.
Jamie, is that the latest one? I don't think.
Golden Halo? Is that the latest?
No, I didn't think so.
I don't have one with me.
But it basically covers that. You need to send it out, right?
I can kind of show you on the screen if you want, or if you don't want. So originally we had an entrance and an exit here, and our property came across there with the previous agreement, I guess you could say. So basically, so we had this portion back down to here. All we're doing is looking to rezone this one. The park would end up in this area right here, which is not kind of marked. We would have a building in turn there and 3 here with our green space and dog park in this area. So we would have two-way traffic coming in and out onto Tower and no traffic in or out on Brophy. Other than that, it's pretty much the same building design, same concept, same amount of units.
Any questions from council for Mr. Rogerson?
Yeah, Jamie, just the park, can you explain where that park, where you plan to relocate the park and that,
So
just,
there's an access point right here off of Brophy. The way the park is right now, there's really nowhere for people to park unless they park on the street.
okay,
And it's kind of in the middle of an intersection there, and there's only a little bit of a driveway
What-
on the south end of that property. And usually I think it might even be chained off, if I'm not mistaken.
okay.
So basically, in moving the park to the top corner of the building, that's it there. Yeah. So in moving the park to this yellow highlighted area, it gives an actual entranceway and kind of a parking area for people. And just with the park here and the way that the development was, there's a possibility that there'd be a lot of kids kind of in the parking lot area. Might have been some hazards there.
Too dangerous?
Yeah,
Thank you, Jamie.
you're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Rogerson?
Maybe,
Comments?
just one, Mr. Chairman, maybe you mentioned, I didn't pick it up. The entrance into the park is where?
Well, the picture's actually upside down, so this is Brophy Street up here,
Yes?
and there's an access point right here, whether that's foot traffic or vehicles, but it is wide enough. I think we came to that agreement that it was wide enough for vehicles to have a proper access point there. And then the park was here, I believe it was around 10,000 square feet of park space. And then this area up here was gonna be kind of the common area that we could have if the buildings are pet friendly, which I assume they will be to a certain capacity, it'd be an area for people to let their dogs out, some grass and some treat areas and seating and stuff like that, so.
Thank you.
Councillor Snow?
Do we have what the current actual park space is? How many square feet is that?
I'm not sure.
And I don't, yeah, sort of.
They're kind of
whoever-
staggered around the equipment that's there right now, so I don't know how big of an area that it covers.
Okay.
But we figured that the equipment that is there, including the possibility of the new equipment that JP talked about, would fit in that space comfortably.
Councillor Adams, you in the air? No, I see the light on there.
Councillor Adams?
I'm right here.
Do you have, I can't see your hand, so, or your light. Do you have any questions, Councillor?
No, I'm good. No, I'm good. Everything's good. I get the explanation and the drawing, so I'm good.
Okay, thank you, and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any lights on Mr. Rogerson, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We will move on with the process here, and now is the time that we would invite comments from the public. So, and I always like to encourage folks to speak, because this is your opportunity to speak.
Perfect, thank you. Mike Macbeth, live at 455 Tower Street, top of Tower in Norman. Can you hear me okay? No problems? Okay. Firstly, thank you for hosting this forum. A couple of questions. First one, in the city bylaws, what is the percentage of green space allocated within the city limits? Green space or parkland, or park zoning?
Make sure I understand your question. So the percentage of...
Do you have a specific allocation of green space
per development, like?
within the city bylaw boundaries?
Okay.
Have you allocated a specific, the Summerside shall have 10% or 8% or 12% green space?
I don't think it's designated quite that way, but I would ask maybe Linda or Director Aaron to speak to that.
There is a Parks and Green Space plan, and each park is, there is a language in there that indicates how much park space is allotted for population. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we can provide those for the planning board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, sort of on that same thing, in Summerside North, the area that I'm in, is there an allocated amount of park space allocated?
Okay.
And what size would that be?
So similar to the last question there, as questions are raised tonight, those answers would be provided to the planning board meeting and for council to consider at that time.
Okay, the apartment, it's 4 32-unit apartment buildings, correct? I believe 12 of the 128 units are going to be subsidized for... 16 in the first building, so half?
Yeah, half the first building, and we're in conversation with them, but there's no guarantee. We would obviously promote as many affordable housing units as possible.
Okay. What's the...
But all of the units will be affordable. They're a smaller footprint, so all of the rents will be probably below market value certainly for today's rent.
Okay, so in the business plan, what is the proposed rental per unit, for a 2-bedroom unit, let's say?
I believe it was around $1,000.
Okay. And they're net zero buildings?
They're going to be net zero capable or net zero ready for sure.
Okay, and then lastly, has there been opposition, and if so, has a petition been raised, and how many names have been signed on the petition?
We haven't had petitions, so sort of this second go around, but we certainly had petitions on the first go around for the previous plan that was, those motions were rescinded. Trying to recall the number that were on the petitions. Was it in the vicinity of between the two, I think there were two petitions, if I recall correctly, and maybe around 30 all told.
Okay, thank you.
And I may be, don't quote me in that figure, I'm going by memory here. As I get older, the memory's not what it used to be.
So the purpose of this meeting is, or this portion of the meeting is to amend the bylaw to allow for high-density zoning within a parkland area in Summerside North, is that correct?
To amend the zoning,
Yes.
not to, yeah, yeah, to rezone the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Councillor McFeely, I do not see any other lights on. I don't want to jump ahead of anybody, but you had mentioned the parks. There was a study done, maybe Linda or Aaron would have that information, but I think we got 3 times the park space than most municipalities our size in Atlantic Canada, or maybe, but do you have that information? But I know there was a report done by Recreation.
It is in the Parks and Greenspace plan, and we'll have that information available for you at the planning board meeting.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? And then again, I reiterate, this is your opportunity, and Mr. Cameron, the floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Philip Cameron, Summerside, live at 423 Myrtle Street. I was here a few months ago when they were switching it from Parkland to R4, and it was quite a discussion, and there was a lot of people up on arms about it in the area when they found out about it. Myself, I was trying to develop it, and Mr. Rogerson here came along and tried to develop it as well. So now that things are changing, the land is actually changing again. It's not just the parkland, it's the entrance, exit. Someone has come up with a new idea to how to get into this land now. And this is why we're here, to figure out if that's the right way to get into the land, or is that the options of getting into the land? And then it's gonna be zoned R4, or has it been zoned R4 now?
You want to speak to that, Aaron, in terms of process?
This is, sorry, excuse me. This is the process to rezone the land.
So it hasn't been rezoned to R4 yet, so it could still stay parkland.
This is the first public meeting to change and propose to rezone from parkland to R4. The previous meeting, series of meetings happened, but it did not include this parcel when they revised their, I'll say, concept going forward. So it didn't match the last set of meetings. So we restarted the process based on their new concept, so that the parcels being rezoned would match their current concept. So really we started over as of tonight. This is the first step of 3 meetings to rezone the property.
Okay, that's good to know.
Just on the first
So-
piece though, right here,
Can,
just on that driveway entrance part, because the rest of the property is already passes R4, is it not?
No, those motions were all rescinded. We're on a whole new process here now.
and I think it's fair to let you know that after the last bunch of meetings that we had, a number of councillors got messages from folks who live in the area saying, if you could just change the entrance and exit off of, don't put it on Brophy. We don't want all the traffic going up that way, because they felt it was, pretty condensed. So they said, can you make the entrance exit down around Tower? So when that came forward, then it had that, so that's where the park is located now. So that parkland came up for rezoning because that park has to be moved. So it just started the whole thing all over again. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. It's great that it started over again.
Well, yes, and that's fine, but what I'm saying, that's why we're here, because it's like going right back to the beginning. But the people that contacted me, and a lot of people contacted me, they were happy that the entrance and exit could be at the other end. They didn't want it to be so busy up around, the apartment building at the.
Okay, are all those
top of
people that
Brophy.
contacted you public? Is it to the public that have contacted you? Can we find out who has contacted
Oh, they were all
you?
the people that you guys met with, all your,
Or is it written down, or how many people it was?
Oh, my goodness, there was a number of people. I probably have their names somewhere, but I haven't heard anything this time, except I got one phone call yesterday, just wondering if it was
No,
so.
because there was close to 80 or 100 people in my area
That's
that
right,
were saying they didn't want to park there to begin with. So a lot of them were under the understanding that it was already switched to R4 and the developer was going ahead. So as far as a lot of people know, switching the entrance from that end to the other end, I'm just wondering how many people said that was fine. Do you have a record of that or no?
Of how many said it was fine?
Yes.
No,
No, I don't
No,
have
so
a
it was just
record.
hearsay that
Well,
a
it
lot of
wasn't-
people
it's-
liked it.
Well, it wasn't even, they said it to me. but-
Yeah.
And I think Mr. McDougall got, I mean, a number of people got messages saying, could you do that? We were just trying to make it okay for everybody, right? That was the thing, like people, if it was gonna go ahead, they didn't want the entrance exit to be up that way.
Okay, so that's a good alternative. Here's what I wonder. So the land was sold yet or not sold?
it's not sold.
It's not sold?
No.
So did it go up the public process? Has it gone through the public process for sale?
Yes, it has.
All the steps were taken for this new development going on. Like the last development, people bid on it. No one bid on this development. So it's gone through the proper steps for the public process. That's what you're
This-
telling me right here tonight?
Yeah. So,
Okay, so how can a new development be put on that podium saying it's already been sold when it's a new development? Like up to public process. How can it be already done when we don't even have the dimensions of what we're buying or anyone's buying, and it's the city's land?
so, well, I think tonight is, like we said, the first meeting in a process, a three-meeting process. You know, tonight is to identify the questions. It'll go to the planning board, same as all our processes. They will go to the planning board. The questions will be answered at planning board. Council will have a discussion at planning board, and and then it will go to full council for a vote. And council will make their decision based on the information that they have in front of them. And each councillor will vote as they see fit based on that information. So that's the process, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us as councillors to listen and hear and come to our own individual decisions on how we're going to vote, and the process allows for that gathering of information. So this is the first meeting of that process.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting here
yeah.
tonight. This is the first meeting of that process for that land.
Yeah.
It's not sold, but it's not going through it's already gone through the public process
it
of
was-
being sold.
Yeah,
And you have an accepted buyer on it, we'll say.
Yeah, dependent on, the rezoning and stuff, so we need to
Dependent
work
upon the
through that
rezoning.
process,
So in June of 2019, I started dealing with the city on that same particular piece of land. And I sent you all my emails and information with Rob Philpott. And on there, one says, and the pictures are up there now, which you all have this, the red boundary denotes the land that is to be sold. There are two pieces of the city's parcel that are not available for sale. It does not include the park at the south end of the city parcel, nor does it include the city right-of-way at the eastern end of the parcel. So that's one text that I got when I was making the purchase on this land. So when you don't get that with it, it's kind of a different story now. You're not buying the same piece of land. So you're saying you sold that land, or you haven't sold the land, but you're trying to sell that land, It's the same piece of land. And it's already gone through,
I think what we're
The
trying,
process.
what I think what council's trying to do, and Councillor Ramsey spoke to a little bit, is we're trying to be responsive to what we heard through the first process of citizens were saying the increased traffic on Brophy, and you know, we're trying to work with the developer. I think we know what we heard through the first process. They're real concerned about the traffic on Brophy, and that this will basically eliminate that traffic issue that seemed to be the #1 issue for folks when we went through the initial process. So it was a way to repackage this that might be more palatable in terms of somewhat, I won't eliminate everything, but eliminate some of those traffic concerns and make it a better situation for those citizens that expressed their views to all of us as councillors through the first process. So I think that's kind of where we're at. I know a couple of councillors have questions here. Councillor Snow had his hand
I'm
up
just
there.
trying to clarify what Mr. Cameron's saying. I think I understand. So are you saying because the footprint of the land being sold was changed in the new plan, that sort of should have, in your opinion, reopened the for sale process?
of course.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say here.
Okay.
Because when, myself, as I was bidding on the land, I knew what the land was, and that's what I wanted. But now the land has switched. So if the city hasn't sold the land yet, but we're saying it went up, so there was a new bid, is what I'm saying, on the land then? Is that how the new process got the new, was there any more new bids put on the land, or it's the same bids that were made on the last parcel? Same bids.
If I could just throw this in, Mr. Chairman, just got a text from people that said they can't hear the councillors if we could speak more closely to the microphone. So let's try that.
Yes, Philip, I put the motion on the floor to move the process because I got phone calls as well as everybody else. And the conversation basically, you know, was if it has to go through, don't have the entrance off of Brophy. And so I asked that it be moved back to Tech Services to review with the developer to see if we could come up with the entrance, see if there was a plan. And that's back to the process where we are today. So I just wanted to clarify that. But I had conversations with a number of people around there, and you know, they're strongly, you know, if it has to go through, we don't want the entrance on Brophy. Can you just do anything? So that's why I put it back to Tech Services for the city to sit down and see if we can come up with a plan that would address the entrance and exit off the tower.
So the land was never changed to R4 since it's still parkland?
Presently,
Yeah, it would be until we finish this process tonight.
Right, so if it was still parkland back then, and changing the entrances from one section to the other section, wouldn't the land go back for sale again? It's city land, you have no commitments to nobody.
That wasn't the intent. That wasn't the intent that I had to go back.
no, I think, yeah.
Come to an agreement. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah, that wasn't the intent of the motion, to go back to sale.
Well, were you trying to please the people?
Yes.
Or trying to make the sale, or make the developer happy, or
No,
who?
it was trying to please the people. That was the #1 request that I had.
So that was the people in that area? The Brophy people?
The people that contacted me, and
The
they were
McGinnis
all-
group? They were here tonight at the meeting, they suggested it would be good to come off a tower.
Yeah, they weren't here at the last meeting, I don't believe.
I don't recall.
No, they weren't. Yeah, but they weren't at the meeting that I addressed that. No.
So I have 5 buildings there, Bruce. You never contacted me once on any of it.
I didn't contact anybody, they contacted me.
Oh, okay, so I thought,
No, I didn't contact them.
okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, I'll just address this to you, Mr. Cameron, and anybody that is listening. I've got it on. Yeah, okay. It was my understanding as a person sitting amongst council that the developer, when we were going through the first process, they heard the concerns expressed by the residents. This process didn't change the developer who was working on that bid, but from my understanding and from my vantage point is that this process has come about to try and appease the concerns that the residents had about where the entrance would be, you know, any of those kinds of things. I don't think it's like anybody was doing anything to be untoward or anything like that. I think council was listening to what the concerns were, and it's my understanding that the developers that had the application in were trying to appease that concern of the residents. And I think that's why it's come back to this process, to try and find a location for the entrance to move that park area so that it would kind of be a win-win situation for everybody, because there were so many people that had called and that expressed concerns and petitions. So that's where I'm at on it. That's how I felt this process is working.
So I feel for what you're saying, because what you're saying is a similar thing to what the councillors voted on that night, that they want development in Summerside.
But we also listened to our residents who expressed concerns through petition, through numerous phone calls and emails. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons why we looked at it as a council, to try and work with the developers to see if there was some way to work with the concerns of the residents. And that's why, in my observation, that's why it's here back for this process.
Okay, so we're not talking the same piece of land now, though, and the city's still in charge of the land, and you're trying to change it for developer or developers.
No,
Okay, I'll qualify that by saying I'm not a developer. I haven't talked to any of the developers, but I think we were trying to work and see where an entrance or how the parkland could be so that it would accommodate the residents as well as the existing developer that put in the initial application, even though we had to go through this application process.
Okay, so I put in a bid also, and as I quoted earlier, it's not the same land I'm buying. So if the land hasn't been sold yet, why is it not up for another, but it's set, you're saying it has been gone through the public process. So what date before it went through in November 6th, Wayne McKinnon listed it. So is that the date that it went through for public process, way back in 20?
That was the start of the public process. That's when it was first listed.
Okay, that was for that particular piece of land that the city was producing and trying to sell. Now they're changing the park from one end to the other end, having all your access is coming out wherever by the park. The water and sewer is a whole different thing. You could take it out the park. When I met with technical service, they were mentioning to me, I might have to get an easement through someone's property on Brophy. So that's not the same piece of land that we're selling in this city right now. So that public process back in 2020 is the same one that's following through for this piece of land that the city still hasn't sold, but's trying to sell and trying to re-ours for it. Is that correct? The same, it's all the same.
yeah.
The park was never in the land.
No. So,
Not
The-
right here where he said they were never involved in selling the park or the eastern part of the park. I already questioned all this in 2019.
yeah, and I, you know, in terms of, you know, sort of how we move forward, how we have moved forward is you know, we had a developer interested in purchasing, and we've talked about this before, and interested in purchasing the land. We're trying to be, and we've said this, trying to be responsive to what we heard from the citizens. So there was an opportunity to renegotiate things a bit here to address the major concern that citizens were expressing, make a whole lot better situation for the citizens there. So that's the motivation for going through this the second time. I don't know if, like I say, we're not here to provide answers tonight. The questions are being raised, and those will be dealt with at planning board. I'm not sure what else we can say to advance things. Councillor Ramsey.
I do. I just have Philip, you know, and everybody in that ward knows that I'm not going to vote to get rid of the green space. Okay, that's just where that lies. But I listened to everything that's been going on here, and that piece of parkland, the actual park, is just going to be moved. The property has not changed. The park will be moved from one section to the other. If you would have got that property and all the residents up there had a problem with, you know, the entrance going in on Brophy, if you were the developer, we would do the very same with you, right? We would work with you. How does Philip get this development in here where it doesn't affect or bother a large number of people, because there were a large number of people who contacted me. So as a council, we're just working with the developer to try and make it okay for the residents, because it's probably costing him more money, because guess who's moving the park? The developer, not the city. So, you know, it's not like it's going to be easier for him. So I think what we're doing is just trying to work with the people, with the developers trying to work with the people as well. So I don't want you to think that any kind of manipulation or anything went on. You know, he's just a developer trying to develop an area. He's trying to work with the people. We're trying to work with the people. We're trying to work with you. You know, so I guess I just have to explain that. And it's not a good situation for me to be in, but I've certainly listened to council, and I've never spoken with the developer. The people I've spoken with are the residents in Ward 3 who I am committed to, and I'll do what I can for, but I don't want council or you to think that anything's been done out of the ordinary, anything that we wouldn't have done for any developer, including you. I hope you know that. I just need to say that. And
Thank
anyway,
you, Councillor
thank you.
Ramsey. And you know, you raised a number of questions there, Mr. Cameron, and I know staff have recorded those questions and will report on those to planning board when we have the planning board meeting. So I don't know if you have additional questions or new questions.
Oh, I got two more.
Okay, let's go.
So the people in that area, and this is the first I've heard tell of it, that there's going to be a dog park in the complex that you're putting up, Jamie?
Possibly.
Possibly.
We're gonna have a common area, it's just open for ideas, common area, seating area, you can see where it says common/seating, possibility. Basically an area for people to take the dogs out to pee, so they're not peeing in the park.
Okay, so that's for the residents up there to hear that also, if that's part of the,
Philip, I mean, we have no 100% game plan, we don't even know if the buildings will be pet friendly. It all depends on the feedback that we get from the people that are looking for housing.
yeah, so I've been in that area for 10 or 15 years, and I got feedback. And they're not happy with 120 units in their backyard. So that's my feedback now. And as far as the development coming off of Tower, when I put my proposal in, I said I was going to cut and go on to Duke Street. Did y'all see that? Anybody? Any hands, lights? Yes? No? You haven't seen that?
I haven't seen that.
Barb? Bruce? Haven't seen that? Norma? So I guess my proposal went somewhere. Where did it go? So there was no taking out the park. There was no rerouting the lines. I had another suggestion, but it didn't get anywhere. So we're still dealing with Jamie's group, which is fine. And the land hasn't been sold yet, and it's not R4 yet. So I'm just wondering, what is the procedure? Because I normally don't come to City Hall and complain about a lot of things. But when this started in 2019, it took me almost a year and a half to get back in the door. And you all got these, did you all get the email I sent everybody of me and Rob's communications for a year and a half? Yes, Norma? Yes?
Yes.
Yes? So that's why I'm here tonight, because things are changing. They're not the same as they were when we started a year and a half. Now we're putting entrances on another road. That might suffice to make some people happy. But 120 units in my backyard on my 5 properties is not what I thought to be there. So if it's not R4 yet, and it's not sold, the city should consider what they're doing here. And yes, sorry for your development, Jamie. It's a great idea. City needs lots of housing. But if you got to reroute the whole thing, you guys decide what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Cameron, for any questions for Philip. And again, thank you for expressing your view. You've raised a number of questions. Those questions will be dealt with as part of the report. And we're always pleased to hear people's views, so thank you very much. Anybody else in the public that would like to comment? Thank you very much, Mr. Cameron. Anybody else in the public that would like to express a view? And again, I reiterate over and over again that this is the opportunity.
So I just want to say, if there's anyone watching on your nice YouTube channel here, to contact your councillors tomorrow and get this clarified how it's actually going. Because it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me right at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll get your calls. You can record them.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none. Oh, certainly.
In the planning of this, we're going to have 4 32-unit apartment buildings. So let's talk another 100 cars within that small area, right? Have we talked about what the impact will be on traffic going from Duke onto Pope, which is a nightmare at the best of times?
One of the things that will be covered off in the report to Planning Board will be the impact of traffic in the area. Okay. So that will be given consideration in that report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Anything else before we move on here? If not, move on with the explanation of the process. In order to process the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, the following steps are required. 1, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a first time and declared as read at a first council meeting. 2, the zoning bylaw amendment is referred to Planning Board for review and recommendation. So both of those steps, 1 and 2, will take place this evening, basically. 3, the Planning Board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to Council. So that's a Planning Board meeting. And Brian, what was the date of that meeting? May 24th? So May 24th, 6 p.m. Planning Board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to Council. So that's where all the questions that were raised tonight will be considered, and staff will provide comments on each of those questions and provide clarity, hopefully, for Council. So 4, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a second time and declared as read a second time at the Council meeting. The official plan amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolutions will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. If the official plan amendment is adopted by council, the amendment is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendments become official. If the official plan amendment is defeated, the zoning bylaw amendment will be defeated as well, as the zoning amendment cannot contradict the official plan amendment. Six, the zoning bylaw amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. If the zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. So those steps 4 to 6 would take place at council's second meeting, and that will happen on June 7th. Please note that in accordance with section 5.20 of the city zoning bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of council in respect to the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, IRAC. And I have a couple of resolutions there, Your Worship, and probably best if I stay seated to read those resolutions so people on YouTube can hear.
Just so everybody's clear, the 21 days from when?
21 days from the decision of council.
So
So 21 days from June 6th.
Oh, okay.
7th, excuse me, yeah.
June 7th, 21 days from June 7th.
Okay, so the resolutions, Your Worship, resolution COS 22-00044, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Justin Durand. Whereas an application was initiated by the City of Summerside for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 322339 from Parkland P Zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be resolved that zoning amendment 126 be hereby declared as read a first time. And I'll read Schedule B into the record, Your Worship, the zoning amendment 126. A bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under the authority vested in it by Section 18, Section 19 of the Planning Act, RSPEI 1988, Cap P-8, hereby enacts as follows. The zoning for portion of PID number 322339, shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, is designated as high-density residential R4 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of Parkland P Zone. And the map with the subject property is attached there, Your Worship.
So this can be moved by the chair of the planning board and seconded by any member of council. It doesn't have to be a member of the planning board.
Yeah, it's seconded by Councillor Durand.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's go to planning board to get the
Yeah.
answers from
Right, right. Okay, it's moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Duran. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay?
Nay.
Okay. You got, are you on the air, Carrie? Or, sorry, Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, so it's
Okay.
6-2 in favor?
6-2,
Ramsey-
yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Ramsey and Councillor Campbell.
Yeah. And the second resolution, Your Worship, is COS 22-045, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Justin Durand. Whereas an application was initiated by the City of Summerside for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 322339 from Parkland P Zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 126, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read the first time at this council meeting, be resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 126, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred back to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Do you read, you're not reading the, okay, moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Duran. Any questions on the resolution? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, same, 6-2 in favor. Councillor Campbell and Councillor Ramsey, nay.
That
That's all you have?
concludes our first meeting, Your Worship.
Okay, we'll continue on. Public meeting number 395 Brophy Avenue.
So this is the number 1B part of the meeting that we alluded to earlier. So the background, the City of Summerside is initiating a map amendment to the city's park and green space plan. The purpose of the amendment is to delete a portion of an existing mini park, Tower Street, 140 on the map, as indicated on the map. The public meeting was advertised in the April 27, 2022 edition of The Guardian. Although notification letters are not required for amendment to the Parks and Green Space Plan, the amendment was noted in the notifications mailed out to the neighbors that were impacted by the official planning zoning amendment for this property. As a result of the proposed official plan and zoning amendments to a portion of PID number 322339, an amendment to the Parks and Green Space Plan map is required. The area, Tower Street Park, designated as 140, on Schedule B, map of future and existing recreation and green space, indicates that the subject area indicates the subject area being considered. A portion of the park will be deleted from the map, while the remaining portion will remain. The existing playground structures will be moved to the remaining park area. So an explanation of the process. In order to process the Parks and Green Space Plan map, official plan amendment, the following steps are required. 1, planning board reviews the proposed map amendment and prepares a recommendation to council. So that takes place at planning board. And that will happen on the May 27th meeting. May 24th? May 24th, yeah. The map amendment is adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. Step 2 takes place at council's second meeting. If the amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture, Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. Please note that in accordance with section 5.20 of the city zoning bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of the council in respect to the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days of the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, IRAC. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, didn't see it down at the bottom of my, oh, okay, I got it here, yeah, my apologies, folks. My apologies. And I certainly didn't do that intentionally, so we will now open the floor to the public for any comments that they may have there.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure can, Your
I'm
Worship.
just wondering, it's referred to as Brophy Avenue, this area. Where did they come up with the Brophy Avenue for the address versus Tower versus whatever other streets in here? I'm just curious.
I'll have to defer to staff for that one.
The entrance to the park is off of Tower Street, but
Right.
and it was referred to as a Tower Street Park. But there is the other entrance off of Brophy Avenue, so we put an address on it so that we can associate it for file purposes.
Okay, so how is it registered, that property number?
It's just registered the City of Summerside and it says internal parcel. So
Oh, so
there's
it
no
doesn't say-
civic address for it specifically.
Oh, okay.
Okay, not hearing, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah, no sense of being here if you're not gonna ask a question.
Yeah, and please, as before.
Philip Cameron, 423 Myrtle Street.
Perfect.
I didn't know I'd get another opportunity to be up here. I feel a lot better, my heart's not beating as bad. But the question I asked, and Barb Ramsey brought it up there, Councillor Ramsey, was that you're not taking on any cost of the park moving from where it is over to where it's gonna go? Is that correct in my assumption?
That was my understanding.
Well, someone's got to tell me yes or no here tonight, or is the city paying for this?
No.
One here, one no, no. Bruce? Sorry, Barb.
Mr. Philpott?
I'm not going to disclose anything that we would have discussed with the proposed purchaser in a public session.
That's a good answer. So the entrance to the park was coming off a tower and that was paved and people could park there. So Mr. Rogerson's saying it's coming off of Brophy into the back area of his development, and that's got to be 300 feet in. Are you looking after the paving to go to that, Mr. Rogerson, or is the city looking after that paving?
I don't know how to answer that because I don't know the answer.
Okay. So anybody on the council know the answer to that one? Because it's got to likely be paved for cars to come in. They're not going to truck through the mud.
I think we proposed that we would make a pathway there, but there's nothing been set in stone.
Okay, so technical service pretty well knows that, then nothing in stone to get to the park. Is that correct, technical service?
Technical services is not part of the land purchase. We're here for the planning only.
Okay, didn't know that. I
That's
thought
right.
the land would be
No.
kind of drawn out, and this is what's happening, this is what's happening.
We were just here doing the rezoning portion. We were not part of the land transaction. If people asked us questions about servicing or how they were looking to pose it, we would answer those questions, but we didn't get involved with, we never, if they made an offer, it didn't come to us. If you were passing in an offer, they weren't with technical services.
Okay, I was just curious in my
Yep.
picture of this here new development, how it's going down, like, it's gonna be voted on, I might not be here, I might be here, but I just want to know, as a taxpaying citizen, who's covering this cost? So the planning board, do you guys know? There's 3 here in the planning board?
I think it's a question that's been raised, and staff will take the note, and when it goes to planning board.
Okay, that's a good question, then I want to make sure that's in there, who's covering the cost of that, because I do own property beside it, and if it's just gonna be a pathway, it's not exactly where you want to see vehicles driving in and out in October. Okay?
Would it be part of the development agreement, Mr. McDonald?
I have no idea if there even is a development agreement. Like I say, we're party to the actual land transaction details. We stuck with the actual land use and zoning. So I don't know if there's a development agreement for this parcel or development or not.
But if council wanted it,
I
as part of the development agreement, that could be negotiated, what you're saying?
I don't know if I can say it
Another
any
fair
clearer. I
question
have
for-
zero involvement in the land purchase. I don't know what's in, what's out, if they could make it or not.
Yeah. I think Mr. Cameron has raised the question, and then with, you know, it's a question that staff, in their report, the planning board may address, and what can and cannot be divulged, I don't know. You know, at this point, those are legal questions that I don't have the answers for, but certainly it's a question that you've raised, and it will get some consideration at planning board.
Okay, because just sitting here, I was noticing that part of it, like, is part that I never heard about or never seen anything talked about, so it's kind of a curious question, why and who's looking after that? And again, I'll go back to the park itself. The city's not covering any of the cost going there? Are they putting new equipment there? Did I happen to hear somebody say DeRozier from JP or something? You say something to JP's giving you some new equipment, or are they changing the equipment?
It was brought up in previous meetings. That's all I really know. I don't know.
Tower Street Park was on schedule to get new equipment already. That, it was already a pre-planned improvement to our parks and green spaces. That I know. So that area, Tower Street Park, was planned to get some new equipment this year. Does that make sense?
Before the land-
Regardless of anything going on
Yeah.
with this
Before all
rezoning
this
or
came
sale.
up.
So the park itself was scheduled to get upgrades.
So there was a portion of the park that was going to be updated, we'll say?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. No, that's pretty well all the ones on my mind right at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cameron. Appreciate the questions. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Cameron.
Okay. Well, I already read number 5 into the process, I guess. So, so I should, no need to repeat that, I don't think. So I think, Your Worship, that brings 1B to a conclusion, I believe.
Okay, so everybody's clear when it comes back again, the dates were mentioned?
Yeah, so Planning Board on the 24th, and June 7th goes to council.
Okay. Somebody had their hand up in the audience there, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, didn't see that, sorry.
I gotta clarify one thing there too. We changed the development of Philip Cameron, 423 Myrtle Street. You changed the development from the entrances coming off of Brophy, but for this new park, if the entrance is coming off of Brophy, does it have to be two-way traffic coming in that new entrance to the park? Or is it going to be just a one-lane entrance coming in?
And again, that's a question.
Yeah,
that-
and that's a question for later with technical
raised,
services to
yeah.
figure out, is that a good or a bad for the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because
No.
it's not a very much wide of an easement that's going
Yeah,
through there.
and that's certainly a question that we wouldn't have the answer for here
Yeah.
tonight, but would be considered.
No, that's great. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, thank you. Okay,
Okay, we got
Your Worship,
one more meeting, is it?
we have public meeting number 2 here. Yeah.
This is on 86 Cedar Street. So, Mr. Chairman, the floor is still yours.
We keep going, okay. So 86 Cedar Street,
Rezoning.
have a little drink here
Zoning
first.
amendment.
Thanks, folks. The background, the City of Summerside has received an application for PID number 303859 and PID number 303867 to amend the city zoning bylaw from medium-density residential R3 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow apartment buildings in proposed R4 zone. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment changed the zoning from medium-density residential R3 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, and the subject property is defined there in the map along the Confederation Trail, just up from Cedar Street. The application was advertised in the April 27, 2022 edition of The Guardian, and letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject property. So we would open the floor at this point is for comments and questions, and we would invite the applicant, the Boys and Girls Club. I think Adam Binkley is going to represent the Boys and Girls Club here, so welcome, Adam. And again, we'd ask you to state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Adam Binkley, Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of Summerside, and 364 Greenwood. Your Worship, Council, I do come with a team behind me. So we have Margie Fowler and Susan Darash. I know you're familiar with them. They've started, I believe, I'd say 3+ years working on the Project Lifehouse to establish housing for women and women with families in need. And it's been a long road. They've worked very, very hard. And I am pleased to announce that we have purchased 2 facilities on Cedar Street, and we're opening up a 3-bedroom that has 6 beds unit on June 1st. So, thank you. I really want to take this time to thank the City of Summerside. You've supported us 100%, along with the federal government and the province, numerous stakeholders. But it's quite an achievement, and we wouldn't be able to do it without Susan and Margie. So, thank you very much. Also, John Elward is here with me with the local development group, and everyone knows Gary Summers. who works with BGC Summerside with special projects and development.
Hi, Gary.
But uniquely enough, we're opening June 1st, but with the demand of services and the calls that we're receiving from government, we have our coordinator, Jody Sentner. She's received numerous calls. We believe when we open June 1st that the beds are going to be occupied. It's fabulous to be able to provide that service, but we're talking 6 beds, 3 rooms, and the need definitely outgrows what we have, what we're available to offer in the service. So kind of the sky opened up and the gift is there through a CMHC application where we're working with Mr. Elward to apply for funding to build a $3 million 10-unit complex. But in order to do so, we're still going to keep our other facilities operating. And I did forget to mention that we have hired 8 staff. So we've already created 8 new jobs, and great jobs too. So once again, thank you, City, for the support. But in order to apply for this grant, we need space to build the unit. So we have been working with the owner of the land of 86 Cedar, and he's agreed to sell the property. But in order for us to apply for the grant and to purchase the property, the zoning needs to be changed, as was stated, R3 to R4. So I'm here tonight to ask for permission to do so.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions of Adam? Councillor Snow, I guess, was on first.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam. I'm just wondering if you have any idea or plan of the actual building that would be going there. This would be in the heart of my ward, and just, I know neighbors and so on will be asking questions, so I just want to make sure that I'm aware, that's all.
Yeah, we have preliminary plans and they're on the screen. They've been sent to the city, and and we've received exterior plans as well. So everyone has a copy of that, I believe. But there'll be office space in 2 units on the first floor, and then 4 units and 4 units. And the building has been constructed to fit in with all the regulations and guidelines set by the city.
Okay. I'm here in a second.
Councillor Ramsey.
Welcome, Adam, and thank you for all that you've done for the ladies. I know how hard you've worked to get the funding and just keeping the ladies motivated, and appreciate that very much.
That wasn't hard to keep the ladies motivated.
Well, no, maybe they were keeping you motivated, but I know everybody was working really hard, and thank you for that. Just a couple of questions. So one house is going to open June 1st, is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be 94 Cedar.
94, and then what about the other house?
The other house would be used for office space and confidential meeting area
Okay,
at this time.
okay.
And then plans will be for supportive housing for that house. Once, if, fingers crossed, we're able to get additional space with the 10-unit complex.
Exactly, so that was my next question. That 10-unit complex, is that also for women and children?
Yes, and it's transitional housing.
Okay, and if I can try to picture where that is that just behind Notre Dame Place? So you kind of have the,
Yeah, it's
Is that-
behind the properties of 90 and 94 Cedar.
where those 2
Yes.
houses are sitting close to each
Yes.
other there, yeah,
And then we
okay.
have worked with the city and the province to have access that goes across the Confederation Trail. So
Right,
that's
because it would,
Yes.
yes, that's right.
And that would include the sewer and water as well.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Thank you for everything you did with the coldest night of the year.
Councillor McDougall and then Councillor Campbell.
Well, I think my question was just answered. So this is south of those 2 houses that are there now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about the Confederation Trail, so that,
And then we own the property on Cedar, that it would go across and connect to Cedar.
right.
Councillor McDowell, it's not south than this point in there. The 2 houses that are there,
Right.
in behind that, it's on the west.
Okay, that's what I was
Okay.
missing. Okay,
Okay,
thank
it's
you.
okay.
So Councillor Campbell and your worship has the light on there, Ken.
Just a question to Aaron. Aaron, didn't we have problems where it's a three-story building with heating panels on top? Didn't we have to, the government building up there, we had it.
Not that I'm aware of, but we'll be reviewing, we're at the stage where they're gonna have their own designers as far as design the building and whatever else they're gonna put on it. We'll be reviewing we haven't received any plans on the building. As I said, once they get the rezoning, I think they just did some concepts and exterior elevations so people have an idea what they're proposing. And then we'll get the entire, if that goes through, then they'll come in with the actual and complete the entire design of the building. But I'm not sure of what you're speaking of, but we can talk after for another project if there was an issue, yeah.
Put your mic on there. Hit your light.
There's a government building going up in my ward.
Okay.
And we had to get a special bylaw to have, so it might have been 4.
Oh, maybe there was a height variance, perhaps, but.
Yeah.
Your worship?
No objections, from the neighborhood at all,
Not that I've heard, no.
Good,
That's what I was wondering.
great.
Any other questions for Adam, Deputy Mayor?
The mayor asked my question, so.
Oh, okay.
So there's been no responses received from the letters that were sent?
In fairness, we're not through the process here tonight, and there might be people in the audience
Could be
possibly.
people from the
So
public
I think
here
we should
that.
just wait to get through
Okay,
and then see
sure.
if there's any.
Okay, well, thank you, Adam, very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks who are with you as well, for all you do in the community, for the Boys and Girls Club. So now is the time that we open the floor to the public for comments, and I don't believe, normally we would have a list of the written comments, and there's none been received. And again, always encourage the public to take advantage of this opportunity to express your views and ask questions, and because this is your opportunity, and we would open the floor to anybody from the public that might have something to say or a question. Mr. Cameron, welcome, Mr. Cameron.
Hi, Philip Cameron, 423 Myrtle Street. I just want to say thank you for your time tonight. And if this doesn't work out, Adam, while you're trying to get your land, check out Billy Bridges' park. There's a big piece of land right behind it. Might go for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. Oh, there we go. And again, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Doug Gallant, I'm at 82 Cedar Street. Hope that thing's turned on or not. Yeah, this building that they're gonna put there, is that like a row house, or what is that? 1 story, or what is that?
It would be a 3-story, but it would be on the slab.
It's right here.
A 3-story?
Yeah.
There's a picture of it here, Doug.
Okay. So where exactly will that building be located at? Like as opposed to my front window, or what?
Where Daryl Whitlock's house is, it would be 82, or it'd be 86 Cedar. So his house will be relocated, is the plan, and it would be built on that lot and his adjoining
Where
property.
that house is now?
Yes,
Okay. Because my front window is just behind it.
yes.
Okay. And the right of way is coming off of Cedar Street?
Yeah, it's going across 90 Cedar, which is the property, it's kind of like a pie-shaped property that we own.
10, right, that's it?
Yeah.
And that's for,
It's for women, and women with families in need of housing. So you come from all different backgrounds or needs, but that's it.
okay, and the rest of the property, there's 2 parcels there, right?
Yes.
What will happen with the rest of it?
I believe that building will be on both pieces of the property. There'll be some parking. There won't be a lot of parking because it doesn't allow for
Where
that.
is that parking in there?
And then we would more than willing work with you if there'd be any fencing or anything that you would like to. We did go through the process with our Youth Engagement Center where we built across from the Boys and Girls Club on Notre Dame. And we did have someone who's kind of right behind us. So we've worked with her and it's been a fantastic partnership.
start more towards the end of that empty lot and come up. Part of it will be on where the house is,
Yeah.
but a large part of it's gonna be on the empty lot.
A little further on.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would
Okay.
affect my value of my property, would it?
You might increase it.
Yeah, no, that's all I want to know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Glant. Any other comments by the public? Anybody from the public have anything to add? If not, we will continue on, I guess, and with the explanation of the process. In order to process a zoning bylaw amendment, the following steps are required. 1, the zoning bylaw amendment is read first time and declared as read the first time at a council meeting. 2, the zoning bylaw amendment is referred to planning board for review and recommendation, and both steps 1 and 2 are taking place this evening. 3, planning board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to council. Step 3 takes place at the planning board meeting, and that is happening on May 24th at 6 p.m. 4, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a second time and declared as read at a second council meeting. 5, the zoning bylaw amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. If the zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. Excuse me. So steps 4 and 6 and 5 take place at council's second meeting, which is June 7th. Please note that in accordance with section 5.20 of the zoning bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of council in respect to the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, IRAC. So we have a number of 4 resolutions associated with this, Your Worship. So with your
Go ahead.
permission, we'll stay seated so that people can hear. Resolution 22-046, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Barb Ramsey. Whereas an application was received from the Boys and Girls Club of Summerside, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 303859 from medium-density residential R3 zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be resolved that zoning amendment 130 be hereby declared as read a first time. And I'll read Schedule B into the record. The zoning bylaw amendment 130, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under the authority vested in Section 18, Section 19 of the Planning Act, RSPI 1988, Cap P-8, hereby enacts as follows. The zoning for PID number 303859, shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, is designated as high-density residential R4 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of medium-density R3 zone, and the subject property is shown on the attached map, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. Any questions on the resolution? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay. Carried.
And resolution COS 22-047, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Barb Ramsey. Whereas an application was received from Boys and Girls Club of Summerside, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 303859 for medium-density residential R3 zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas the zoning bylaw amendment 130, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read the first time at this council meeting. Be resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 130, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. Any questions on the resolution? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay. Carried.
And resolution 22.043, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Bar Ramsey, whereas an application was received from the Boys and Girls Club of Summerside, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 303867 from median density residential R3 zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be resolved that zoning amendment 133 be hereby declared as read a first time. And I'll read Schedule B into the record. Zoning amendment 133, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under authority vested in it by Section 18, Section 19 of the Planning Act, RSPEI 1988, Cap P-8, hereby enacts as follows. The zoning for PID number 303867, shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, is designated as high-density residential R4 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of medium-density residential R3 zone, and the map showing the subject property is attached, Your Worship.
I think I heard you say 043, but it's 048. That's what I thought I heard, but...
That's quite possible, Your Worship, as I was reading through it.
Moved by you, Councillor McFeely, and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Carried.
And finally, in this particular one, resolution number COS 22-049, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Barb Ramsey. Whereas an application was received from the Boys and Girls Club of Summerside, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 303867 from medium-density residential R3 zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 133, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read the first time in this council meeting. Be resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 133, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the Planning Board for review and recommendation.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. Any questions? All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Carried.
And I have one final resolution, Your Worship, to do with the property at 888 Ottawa Street. Resolution 22-050, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Justin Durand. Whereas an application was received from Harley Jacobi Kaiser and Rosanna Cipriano de Silva for a discretionary use for PID number 317313 to allow a row house 5 unit at 88A Ottawa Street in the medium-density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be resolved that the council approve the discretionary use for a row house 5 units at 88A Ottawa Street, PID number 317313, in the medium-density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And this resolution does not bear the recommendation of the Planning Board meeting of May 3rd, 2022. That should read, not 2011.
Okay, moved by Councillor McFeely. That's been duly corrected that year. And seconded by Councillor Durand. You've all heard the resolution, and as Councillor McFeely mentioned, it does not bear the recommendation of the Planning Board. So, any questions on the resolution? Councillor Durand, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, Your Worship, just I guess more of a question on procedure here. I did second the motion. Does that automatically mean I voted yea, or it's just I seconded the motion to bring it to set it on the floor?
Seconded to get it on the floor.
That's what I thought.
I moved it to get it on the floor and you seconded it.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Doesn't
now
tell us.
Councillor, I didn't see any other lights on. I do not see any other lights on, so you're ready for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay.
Nay.
Unanimous. Okay, even Councillor Adams just on line unanimously defeated. Thank you very much. Eight zero vote.
I think there's an important note to be had here. This property, that does not mean that that property cannot be developed, because it's still zoned. So
For
I know there's
duplex.
residents here
Still
in
zoned.
the audience, so I think it's important that it's clear that it's already zoned for something correctly. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, it's owned R3, so it can
Yeah.
be developed for anything under the R3 zone.
That was discussed
Right,
at the
okay.
Planning Board, yeah.
So under the R3 zone, what's allowed?
I don't have that right off the top of my
I mean,
head.
it's a duplex
I can
only?
probably read back through the first one of these resolutions.
We have the neighbors with us tonight, so
Yeah. I personally, and the reason I voted nay was because like 5 units back there would just be too much. I went up there again and I took a look, and I just don't see how that, would be possible up there, so I had to vote against it.
I don't have that information with me right now.
But it was mentioned at the last meeting, sorry, I didn't want to jump ahead there, Councillor Snow, but it was mentioned at the last meeting that a duplex could go there, and they wouldn't have to come to council?
R3 allows 2 units as of right.
2 units as in a duplex, not 2 buildings.
No, 2 units, yeah, 2 units, not 2 buildings, 2 units. Yeah.
The people who live next door understand that, eh? That's been that way for years, I guess.
I have a question for you, Your Worship. As I said in a couple other meetings, I mightn't be the smartest knife in the drawer here. But at the last city planning meeting, it was mentioned that this property hadn't been split in 2, which is not fact. Mrs. Holt, as everybody knew, owned that full property, one on Johnson Street and the parcel of land in question. The entryway to the parcel of land in question at this time that is asked to be developed was from Mrs. Holt's property on Johnson Street, the right-of-way to it. So now, it's been sold a couple of times, and they're trying to get the best of both worlds with that same piece of property. They sold half of it with the residence that Mrs. Holt used to own, and the right-of-way to the parcel of land in question now. So now they want to sell this parcel of land, so they're basically getting double whammy for the same money that they paid for the one full parcel. And by doing so, they're going to put my driveway and myself and my partner in jeopardy. I heard at the planning meeting there was talks of signs going up to say, there's traffic going to be coming out there if it goes ahead. I work in construction every day of the week. And a lot of people literally don't even pay attention to a human being standing up with a flagpole. So they're certainly not going to pay any attention to a sign that's been stuck in the side of the road there wherever. And that was my other question I was going to have. The only property that's close to where that suggested driveway will be going in is ours. So I don't know where they were planning on putting these signs warning of that driveway, because it's not on my property. Thank you.
So just to follow up with your question about it, is it a separate property? Is that was your question? Or is it still joined to some other property that she owned?
It was, excuse me, the property in question now about being developed, and the one directly out from it on Johnson Street was all owned by Mrs. Holt. So the owners now, they split the property in 2 halves. They sold the house and the right-of-way to the back piece of that property to a young lady that lives 2 houses around on the corner from me on Johnson Street, who's also opposed to this being built in behind. And at the other couple of meetings that I was to here, I brought in a petition, and it said it was names and phone numbers. It is 13 of the houses in that vicinity, in that block, that are within 60 meters of it, that are opposed to this happening.
So just so I'm clear again, through you, Mr. Chairman, this lot, the gentleman that came in for this rezoning or for the question to build a 5-unit building, is the lot in his name or is he gonna purchase it if it gets rezoned? It's already owned by this person, so it must have been subdivided in order for him to buy it. His lawyer would have made those arrangements.
That's correct.
So, Your Worship, I think just to be clear, what happened tonight was council defeated the application for the discretionary use, so that basically eliminates the 5-unit building, but there's still a right within the official plan for them to build a duplex there, and we can't stop it. That doesn't even come to council. So just so that we're clear what's happened here tonight, the application for the discretionary use was denied, so there won't be a 5-unit building there, but there still potentially could be a 2-unit building there.
And that's why I asked the question I did, because I didn't want you guys leaving here with a false pretense that nothing will be built there, because I knew it was zoned from previous meetings, and I thought it was very important that you guys knew what it was zoned, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure you understood that like the 5-unit application that was there was denied tonight.
Okay, my next question is this developer that wanted to put the 5-row in there, if he decides he's going to go ahead with a 2-complex unit in there, will that have to come up before council? It won't?
No. He could have done that before. That doesn't have to come to council.
He likely knew that when he purchased it, but tried to get 5. So in order to try to get 5, he has to go through council, and that was turned down.
Okay.
I would imagine his lawyer and the real estate people advised him when he was purchasing it, what it was zoned for.
So my question is, if he does go put a double duplex in there, who do we talk to that were opposed to it?
The application for the duplex would have to go in through tech services, right, Aaron?
They would come in for a building permit, yes.
They didn't yet, you're saying?
No, they were pushing forward with a 5-unit building. I don't know if they planned to build anything or if it was feasible for them to only get a 5-unit building. I have no idea.
Can I just ask this gentleman a question too? You had mentioned about the land being sold and the right-of-way from Johnson Street was sold. Was it a separate right-of-way or was it just parcel or part of the lot on Johnson?
It is where the garage is on the old Mrs. Holt property. The right-of-way went through there. It did. Into this talked about parcel of land that they want to build this 5-apartment house row, and that was turned down. So now, like I said before, there's still a possibility that he can put a duplex in there, which is still going to put that driveway going right by my patio. And like I said, I work around construction every day, so I have a question for him, but he's not here. I know how much space it takes to get a truck into a lot like that, with material? What's he planning on doing, carrying it in on his back? Because they better not drive on mine.
Thank you for your information. Thank you.
I just have a question too. I'm Debbie Young, his wife. I'd like to thank everyone for their decision. It's been a lot of stress since we first got that letter. And it's just like my prayers were answered tonight, because it was really horrible to go through. And really thank you all. But I said a few things. Whenever we moved into the property, we got to know Mrs. Holt. She was a lovely lady and had a lovely garden just out behind our deck. And used to talk to her quite a bit, so we became friends, and I used to bring her over the odd meal if I was making something good, and she really enjoyed that. And so she always used to say, like, with that driveway being next to ours, we have a very small parking lot for our two vehicles, and we're right on the road, like on off Ottawa. She always say, like, sometimes my husband would take the truck home from where he works, and anytime, so we didn't have a spot for it, so I'd call her up and ask permission if we could park there. And she always said, yes, you know, feel free to use that lot. Like, I'm not using it. This was the right-of-way, right? And so she always had that ongoing thing that we could use, but I always called, got it approved. So whenever she passed away, and the new fella had bought the house and the property, and I can't remember his last name, but his first name was David, and he did come over and introduce himself a few times to us. And so I was just so concerned whenever the house sold, like, we didn't know that the lot was going separately, like that big backyard. I know one time he'd asked us if we wanted to buy it. That was a few years ago, and we said no at the time because we didn't want, you know, any extra space or to cut the grass and stuff. And so he had, oh yeah, whenever the property, there was a for sale sign went up, and it looked like it was our home because it was right in the lot where the road was. And it had, like, right small letters, it had lot for sale. So that was up for quite a few months. I don't know how long ago, like a year and a half ago. And people would drive by and they say, oh my God, you're selling your house, like, you know. So we'd just say no. But then one night I come home from work, and that was never put on that that lot was sold. The sign was taken down, and so we didn't know that that lot sold separately to this couple. And if it had, we would have certainly looked into it before all this transpired. So that's just questions that I had. And it's not gonna make any difference if he builds something, that roadway needs to be looked at again to get in there, so. Anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, you've gotten to the end of the agenda for... And there's nothing for committee of the whole?
Don't believe so.
So is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor McDougall. All in favor? Thank you. Brian will just be a second here getting us